The live stream had 8,700 viewers when Derek Anderson grabbed Kayla Thompson's shirt collar. 8,700 people watched him tear the fabric. But none of them knew she'd spent the last 3 years learning how to throw a punch that could drop a grown man. Not until her fist connected with his face. Let me back up. This isn't one of those stories where the quiet kid suddenly becomes a hero. This is about what happens when you push someone past their breaking point, when you mistake silence for weakness, when you forget that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who never wanted to fight in the first place. It was April in Dallas, and Westfield High School was buzzing with that end-of-year energy. You know the feeling. When summer's so close, you can taste it. But there's still enough time for everything to go wrong. Kayla Thompson was 16. The kind of student teachers forgot was in their class until they took attendance. She liked it that way. Being invisible meant being safe. If you're feeling that rush of what's going to happen next, hit that like button. It really helps more people discover these stories. And if you want to share where you're watching from, drop it in the comments below. For those who want to support more stories like this one, there's a thanks button right under this video. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps me bring you more inspiring tales of courage and standing up for what's right. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see what happens when push comes to shove. Every afternoon, while her classmates were at Starbucks or making TikToks, Kayla was at Thompson Boxing Gym, wiping down equipment and restacking weights. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was her grandfather's place. And after her dad died in Afghanistan 6 years ago, family meant everything. The gym smelled like old leather and determination, and the rhythmic sound of gloves hitting bags was more comforting than any lullaby. That Tuesday started like any other. Kayla ate lunch alone behind the library, camera in hand, taking photos for her portfolio. She loved photography. It let her observe the world without being part of it, through her lens. She could capture moments without getting involved, safe, distant, protected. She was adjusting her focus when she saw them. Derek Anderson, Westfield's golden boy, standing behind the bleachers with Ryan Wilson, a nervous freshman who kept looking over his shoulder. Derek was everything Kayla wasn't: confident, popular, with 50,000 TikTok followers who hung on his every word. His family donated enough to the school that rules bent around him like light around a black hole. Kayla almost lowered her camera. Almost. But something about Ryan's face made her pause. The kid looked terrified. She watched Derek hand him something small, watched money change hands, watched Ryan stuff whatever it was deep in his backpack before practically running away. Click. The camera's autofocus had captured everything in crystal clarity. Derek's face, the exchange, even the small plastic baggie visible for just a second. Kayla's hands shook as she lowered the camera. This wasn't her business. She should delete it. She should forget what she saw. But she couldn't forget Ryan's face. The fear in his eyes. She'd seen that same fear in the mirror too many times. The photo auto-uploaded to her cloud storage before she could decide what to do. Technology. Right. Always one step ahead of our conscience. 3 days passed. Kayla told herself she'd deleted the photo, but she hadn't. It sat in her cloud like a ticking bomb. She went through her routines: school, gym, homework, repeat. Her mom worked double shifts at Parkland Hospital, so most evenings it was just Kayla and her grandfather at the gym. "You're distracted," her grandfather said that Friday, watching her half-heartedly clean the speed bags. Earl Thompson was 72. built like a boxer who had never quite left the ring. His hands were gnarled from decades of fighting, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "Just school stuff, Grandpa." He studied her with those eyes that had seen too much. "Your dad used to get that same look when something was eating at him." Kayla's throat tightened, even 6 years later. Mentioning her father felt like pressing on a bruise. "I'm fine. Sure you are." He turned back to the heavy bag he'd been working. "You know, your dad trained on this very bag before he deployed. Said it helped him think." She'd heard the story before, but something made her ask, Did he ever have to stand up to someone bigger than him?" Earl's hands stilled on the bag. "Every damn day, sweetheart. That's what made him a hero. Not the medals or the ceremonies. The standing up when it would have been easier to stay down." That night, Kayla stared at the photo on her phone. Derek Anderson, school royalty, dealing drugs to freshmen. She could report it, should report it. But who would believe her? Derek's mother was on the school board. His father played golf with the chief of police. And Kayla, she was nobody. The invisible girl who cleaned boxing gloves for minimum wage. Monday changed everything. Kayla was heading to first period when Derek appeared beside her locker. All charm and white teeth. Up close, he was even more intimidating, 6'2", athletic build, with the kind of confidence that came from never hearing the word no. Kayla Thompson. He said her name like he was tasting it. "You know, I've been meaning to talk to you." Her stomach dropped. "About what?" "The yearbook committee needs a photographer for senior portraits. Mrs. Chen said you're the best in school." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "What do you say this Thursday? After school." Every instinct screamed danger. I'm busy. Sorry." "Busy." He leaned against the locker next to hers, blocking her exit. "That's funny, because I talked to Principal Harrison, and he said you'd be perfect for it. In fact, he insisted." The threat was subtle but clear. Principal Harrison, whose new computer lab was funded by the Anderson family. Principal Harrison, who looked the other way when Derek's friends vandalized the bathroom. Principal Harrison, who'd throw Kayla under the bus without blinking. "Thursday," she whispered. "Perfect." Derek's smile turned genuine now. But it wasn't reassuring. It was the smile of a predator who'd cornered his prey. "Old Jim Wing, 3:30, don't be late." As he walked away, Kayla noticed something that made her blood run cold. His phone was out, and on the screen was her Instagram page, her very private, very careful Instagram page. How had he found it? Then she saw it, in his recent searches, her cloud storage login page. He knew, somehow. Derek knew about the photo. The rest of the week crawled by like honey in winter. Kayla barely slept, barely ate, her anxiety, usually manageable, cranked up to 11. She found herself checking over her shoulder constantly, jumping at shadows. Her mom noticed, but was too exhausted from her shifts to push. Her grandfather noticed too, but Kayla had learned to fake normal well enough to fool him. Wednesday night, she helped close the gym like always, as she wiped down the mirrors. Her grandfather worked the speed bag with the rhythm of a jazz drummer. The sound usually calmed her. Tonight, it sounded like a countdown. "Grandpa," she said suddenly, What if someone stronger than you wants to hurt you? What if fighting back just makes it worse?" Earl stopped mid-punch, in the mirror. She watched him turn to face her. "Kayla, what's going on?" "It's hypothetical." "Like hell it is." He walked over, sat on the bench beside where she was cleaning. "Listen to me. I've trained hundreds of fighters. You know what separates the champions from everyone else?" She shook her head. It's not who hits hardest or who's got the best technique. It's who gets up when they're down, who fights when they're scared. Fear's not your enemy. Sweetheart, fear's just information. It's what you do with it that matters. But what if? No what-ifs. His voice was gentle but firm. You've been watching me train fighters since you were 10. You've been absorbing more than you know. That muscle memory, it's there. If you ever need it, your body will remember. She wanted to tell him everything then, about Derek, the photo, the threat. But how could she explain that Westfield's golden boy was a drug dealer? Who would believe her Thursday arrived like a storm everyone saw coming, but no one could stop? Kayla stood outside the old gym wing at 3:25, camera bag slung over her shoulder, heart hammering against her ribs. The abandoned wing was perfect for senior photos. Derek had said, vintage aesthetic, natural lighting, nobody around to interrupt, nobody around to help. Her mind corrected. She could run. Every fiber in her body screamed at her to run. But then, what Derek would destroy her. He had the power, the influence, the followers. She was just the quiet girl who took photos and cleaned boxing gloves. The door to the old gym was already open. Inside. Afternoon sunlight streamed through dusty windows, creating dramatic shadows across the warped wooden floor. It would have been beautiful if it weren't so ominous. Right on time, Derek's voice echoed from the far end of the gym. He wasn't alone. 20 students stood in a semicircle, all holding phones, all recording. Kayla's chest tightened. This wasn't a photo shoot. This was an ambush. Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of Exposing Fake People, Derek announced to his phone, held selfie style. The live stream notification was already showing viewers joining. 50, 100, 200. Today's guest is someone you might not know, Kayla Thompson. She likes to hide in the shadows, taking pictures of people without their permission. He turned the camera to face her. Smile. Kayla, you're live. Her hands shook as she gripped her camera bag. I thought this was for yearbook photos. Oh, it is. We're making memories. And Derek's smile was pure malice now. See, Kayla here thinks she's some kind of detective, sneaking around, spying on people, making up stories. I didn't. But what you all don't know about our little photographer is that she's got some dark secrets of her own. He gestured to someone behind Kayla. Justin Martinez, Derek's usual cameraman, moved to block the exit. Her dad, everyone thinks he died a hero in Afghanistan. But guess what I found in his military records? Kayla's blood turned to ice. Don't. Dishonorably discharged. That's right, folks. Her hero father was kicked out of the military, probably for cowardice. Runs in the family, doesn't it, Kayla? The words hit like physical blows. It wasn't true. Her father had died saving 3 members of his unit, had posthumously received the Bronze Star. But the viewers didn't know that. They only knew what Derek told them. That's a lie, she managed to say, but her voice was barely a whisper. Is it? Then why don't you show us those records? Oh, wait, you can't, because you're too busy taking creepy photos of people. He stepped closer, his crew following like hyenas. You know what we do to snitches at Westfield. The circle tightened, 20 phones recording, the live stream viewer count climbing, 500, 800, 1,000. Kayla's breathing went shallow. The walls seemed to close in. This was her worst nightmare, being seen, being exposed, being helpless while the world watched. Her anxiety peaked, making her vision blur at the edges. "Look at her," Derek laughed. "She's about to cry. The little spy can't handle being in the spotlight." Someone from the crowd. "Rip her shirt. Do it for the stream." More voices joined in, the mob mentality taking over. These were students she'd sat next to in class, people she'd passed in the halls for years. Now they were baying for blood, performing for the camera, each trying to be more outrageous than the last. Derek raised his hand for silence, the showman in complete control. "You know what? That's not a bad idea." Since Kayla likes to expose people, he reached out, grabbed her collar. "Let's expose her." Time slowed down. In that moment, as Derek's hand tightened on her shirt, something inside Kayla shifted. 3 years of watching her grandfather train fighters. 3 years of unconsciously absorbing footwork, angles, timing. 3 years of muscle memory formed while cleaning up after boxing classes. Her grandfather's voice in her head: "Fear's just information. It's what you do with it that matters." She wasn't in the abandoned gym anymore. She was in Thompson Boxing Gym. And this was just another bully who thought he could push around someone smaller. Her breathing steadied. Her vision cleared. Her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. Derek pulled, expecting her to stumble forward. Instead, Kayla pivoted on her back foot, a basic boxing movement she'd seen 1,000 times. His grip loosened in surprise. She stepped inside his reach, her hips rotating exactly how she'd watched countless fighters do it. Her right hand, strengthened by years of carrying equipment and cleaning, formed a perfect fist. Thumb outside, wrist straight, and with every ounce of fear, anger, and frustration she'd bottled up. She threw the punch her body had been preparing for without her knowledge. The cross connected with Derek's nose with a sound like stepping on a bag of chips. He went down hard, phone flying from his hand, blood immediately streaming between his fingers as he clutched his face. The gym went silent, except for Derek's moaning and the sound of his phone skittering across the floor. Still recording, still live, 1,500 viewers, and climbing. Kayla stood over him, her fist still clenched, breathing hard. The anxiety was gone, replaced by something she'd never felt before. Not pride, exactly. Not satisfaction. Just clarity. She bent down, picked up Derek's phone. Her face filled the screen, and for the first time in her life, Kayla Thompson didn't look away from the camera. "Since we're exposing people," she said, her voice steady now, "let me show you something." Her thumb moved to Derek's photo gallery. She knew his password. He'd typed it in front of her earlier that week. Too arrogant to think she'd notice. But as she was about to open it, about to expose his drug dealing to his precious followers, the gym doors burst open. "DEA, nobody move." And that's when the real story began. Because Derek Anderson had bigger problems than a broken nose. And Kayla Thompson, she was about to learn that sometimes. The punch that changes your life isn't the one you throw. It's the one that shows everyone who you really are. Have you ever had a moment where you surprised yourself? Where you did something you never thought you were capable of? I'd love to hear about it in the comments, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened next, because that's where things got really interesting. The DEA agents moved like water, fluid, fast, filling every space, 6 of them, tactical gear, weapons drawn but pointed down. The 20 students with phones scrambled backward, some still recording, others dropping their devices in panic. Derek was still on the floor, blood seeping between his fingers, when an agent knelt beside him. "Derek Anderson, you're under arrest for distribution of controlled substances to minors." The gym erupted. Screams, running feet, phones clattering to the floor. But I noticed something strange. One person wasn't surprised. Officer Patricia Johnson, our school resource officer, walked in behind the DEA team. Except she wasn't wearing her usual uniform. She had on a DEA windbreaker. "Nobody leaves until we clear you," she announced, her voice carrying authority I'd never heard before. "Phones on the ground, now." But Derek's phone was still in my hand, still live streaming. The viewer count had exploded. 12,000, 15,000, 20,000. Comments flooded the screen faster than anyone could read. "Officer Johnson, Agent Johnson," I realized, walked over to me. "Kayla, I need the phone." I handed it over, noticing how her eyes softened when she looked at me. "You okay?" My voice cracked. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me shaky. "I don't understand what's happening." "You will." She turned to address the room, holding Derek's phone up so the live stream could see her clearly. "For those watching, this is Special Agent Patricia Johnson, DEA. What you've just witnessed is the culmination of a 3-month investigation into drug distribution at Westfield High School." Derek tried to sit up, his voice nasally through the blood. "I want my lawyer. This is entrapment. She assaulted me." "Save it," Agent Johnson said. "And that wasn't assault. That was self-defense against attempted battery. Recorded by your own live stream. 20,000 witnesses." She looked directly into the camera. "To the students watching, dealing drugs isn't a game. It's not content. It's not clout. It's a federal crime that destroys lives." Then she ended the stream. The next 2 hours blurred together. Police statements, parents arriving, the principal's shocked face when he realized his star student was in handcuffs. They led Derek out in front of everyone, his designer shirt stained with blood, his empire of influence crumbling in real time. I gave my statement in the nurse's office, an ice pack on my knuckles. The punch had split the skin. Turns out hitting someone hurts you, too. Agent Johnson sat across from me, now looking more like the Officer Johnson I'd known for 2 years. "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been watching him?" "Since January. We got a tip from someone close to him. Said he was selling to freshmen, targeting vulnerable kids." She studied me. "You took that photo, didn't you, behind the bleachers?" I nodded. "I didn't mean to. I was just being in the right place at the right time. That photo would have helped our case, but we didn't need it. Derek was sloppy. Thought his family's money made him untouchable." She leaned forward. "But I need to know. Did he threaten you? Is that why this confrontation happened?" I told her everything. The photo, his finding my Instagram, the fake yearbook setup. As I talked, her expression grew darker. "He organized this whole thing to discredit you before you could report him," she said. "Live-streamed it to destroy your reputation. That's witness intimidation on top of everything else." "But I wasn't going to report him," I admitted. "I was too scared. Fear's normal. What you did today, that took courage." "It wasn't courage." I flexed my sore hand. "I just snapped." "No." Her voice was firm. "You defended yourself. There's a difference." My mom burst in then, still in her hospital scrubs, face wild with panic. "Kayla? Oh my God. Are you hurt? They said there was a fight. That the DEA—" "I'm okay, Mom." And, weirdly, I was, despite everything. I felt more okay than I had in years. The story that unfolded over the next few days was bigger than anyone imagined. Derek hadn't just been dealing to freshmen, he'd built a whole network. 3 other students at Westfield, 2 from neighboring schools. They used social media to coordinate, thinking their coded messages were clever. But the real shock was who had turned him in. Ashley Davis had been Derek's girlfriend for 2 years. Beautiful, popular, the kind of girl who seemed to have everything. But her little brother, Tyler, was a freshman at Westfield. Sweet kid, anxiety issues, desperate to fit in. When Derek started targeting him, offering pills to help with stress, Ashley tried to stop it. "He laughed at me," she told me later, "when we ran into each other at the courthouse. Said business was business. That was the night I called the DEA tip line." She looked exhausted, her perfect makeup unable to hide the dark circles. "My brother's in rehab now, 14 years old and in rehab because my boyfriend thought making money off middle schoolers was cool." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "Don't be. You did what I couldn't. You stood up to him publicly." She managed a weak smile. "That video of you dropping him, my brother watches it every day. Says it reminds him that Derek's not invincible." The video. God, the video. Someone had screen-recorded the live stream before Agent Johnson shut it down. Within 24 hours, #Kayla's was trending. 2 million views, 5 million, 10 million. News outlets picked it up. Shy girl's punch exposes high school drug ring. But the internet's attention span is short. New scandals replaced ours. The view count slowed. The reporters moved on, which was fine by me. I'd had enough of being visible. What lasted longer were the changes at Westfield. Principal Harrison resigned to pursue other opportunities. The school board couldn't ignore that he'd forced a student into a dangerous situation. His replacement was Maria Martinez. Yes, Justin Martinez's mother. She'd been assistant principal at an inner-city school, had 0 tolerance for bullying or drugs, and actually listened when students talked. Justin himself became one of the investigation's key witnesses. Turns out, he'd been Derek's cameraman, not by choice, but by debt. Derek had gotten him hooked on Adderall, then used that dependency to control him. With Derek arrested, Justin finally got clean. Last I heard, he was 6 months sober and working part-time at a community center, teaching kids video production. The trial took 8 months. Derek's family hired the best lawyers money could buy. Tried every trick to get the charges reduced. But Agent Johnson had done her job too well. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, text messages, financial records showing thousands in unexplained cash deposits. Derek pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence, 5 to 10 years in federal prison. No parole for at least 3. His family moved away shortly after. Their reputation in Dallas destroyed. The last post on his TikTok, made from a prison computer during his allotted internet time, had only 500 views. Clout isn't worth your freedom. Trust me. But the biggest change was in me. The day after the arrest, I walked into Thompson Boxing Gym to find it packed. Not with the usual fighters, but with teenage girls. Word had spread about where I'd learned to throw that punch, and suddenly everyone wanted to learn self-defense. My grandfather stood in the middle of it all, looking bemused. "Kayla, I think we need to talk." That's how I became an assistant instructor at Thompson Boxing Gym. Every Saturday, I taught free self-defense classes to high school girls. Not how to fight, how to defend themselves, how to create distance, how to use their voice as their first weapon, how to recognize dangerous situations before they escalated. Real power, I told them during the first class, repeating what I'd learned, isn't about hitting. It's knowing you can, so you don't have to. One girl raised her hand. But you had to hit Derek. I did, because he gave me no choice. But if I'd been less scared of him from the start, if I'd reported that photo when I took it, maybe it never would have gotten that far. I adjusted my stance, demonstrating a basic defensive position. Strength isn't just physical. It's speaking up when something's wrong. It's asking for help when you need it. It's refusing to be silenced. 6 months later, I stood in the same gym, the school gym, not the abandoned one, receiving an award from the Dallas Police Department for community service. Agent Johnson presented it, back in her school resource officer uniform, but with a knowing smile. Kayla Thompson represents the best of what we hope for in our young people, she said to the assembled crowd. The courage to stand up for what's right, even when you're afraid. Especially when you're afraid. My mom sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face. My grandfather stood beside her, his weathered face proud. Behind them, a crowd of girls from my self-defense classes cheered louder than anyone. As I accepted the award, I thought about that scared girl who used to hide behind her camera, who ate lunch alone, who thought being invisible meant being safe. She wasn't gone. She was still part of me. But she'd learned something important. Sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't being seen. It's letting fear keep you silent. Thank you, I said into the microphone, my voice steady. But this award doesn't belong to just me. It belongs to everyone who's ever been afraid to speak up, who's ever felt powerless, who's ever thought their voice didn't matter. I looked out at the audience, making eye contact instead of avoiding it. Your voice matters. Your safety matters. You matter. And if a shy girl who used to eat lunch behind the library can stand up to a bully, so can you. The applause was deafening, but one sound cut through it all, a sharp whistle from the back. I knew that whistle. Ashley Davis stood by the doors, her brother Tyler beside her. He looked healthier now, clear-eyed and smiling. They both gave me a thumbs up before slipping out. After the ceremony, as people mingled and ate grocery store cookies, a woman approached me. Designer suit, expensive haircut, the kind of presence that commanded attention. Miss Thompson, I'm Rebecca Chen from Netflix. We're developing a documentary series about teens standing up to bullying and crime in schools. We'd love to feature your story. I almost laughed. Thanks, but no, I've had enough cameras pointed at me. She smiled like she'd expected that answer. Fair enough, but if you change your mind. She handed me a business card. Sometimes sharing our stories helps others find their strength. I took the card to be polite, but knew I'd never call. My story had already done its work. The girls in my self-defense classes, the students who now felt safe reporting problems, the parents who paid closer attention. That was enough. A year after the punch heard round the internet, I sat in the same spot where it all started. The abandoned gym had been renovated, turned into a makerspace for art students. Sunlight still streamed through the windows. But now, it illuminated creativity instead of cruelty. My camera, a new one, digital this time, captured the transformation. Through the lens, I saw Jenny Martinez, no relation to Justin, teaching a younger student how to mix paints. Where Derek had built his circle of intimidation, she'd created a circle of art and acceptance. Hey, Kayla, Jenny called out. Want to get in the picture for once? I'm good behind the camera, I said automatically, then caught myself. Old habits. Actually, yeah, why not? I handed my camera to another student and stepped into the frame. For so long, I'd believed safety meant staying invisible. That strength meant never needing anyone. But real strength. Real strength was knowing when to step forward and when to step back. When to use your voice and when to use your fists. When to stand alone and when to stand together. The camera clicked, capturing me, not hiding, not fighting, just being, present, visible, unafraid. My phone buzzed. A text from my grandfather. "Class starting in 20, you teaching or what?" I smiled. "Gotta go. Self-defense class." "Can I come?" Jenny asked. "After what happened with Derek, I figure we all need to know how to protect ourselves." "First lesson's free," I said, gathering my things. "But I should warn you, it's not really about learning to punch people." "No, then what's it about?" I thought about it for a moment. "It's about learning that you're worth defending, that your safety matters more than someone else's ego, that sometimes the biggest act of rebellion is just refusing to be afraid." As we walked out together, passing the spot where everything had changed, I realized something. Derek had been wrong about me. I did belong here. Not because I'd earned it through violence or viral fame, but because I'd claimed my space. I'd refused to be erased. And that refusal, that simple, powerful act of existing despite someone's attempt to destroy you, that was the real knockout punch. The gym at Thompson Boxing was, indeed, packed when we arrived. 23 girls, ages 14 to 18, already warming up. Some had been coming since the beginning. Others were new, drawn by word of mouth rather than viral videos. "All right, everyone," I called out, moving to the center of the mat. "Who can tell me the first rule of self-defense?" A dozen hands shot up. I pointed to Samantha, a quiet sophomore who reminded me of myself a year ago. "Trust your instincts," she said. "If something feels wrong, it probably is." "Exactly. Your body knows danger before your brain does. Listen to it." I moved into teaching mode. The confidence still surprising me sometimes. Today, we're working on voice projection, using your voice as a weapon. And as the class progressed, I caught my grandfather watching from the office doorway. That small, proud smile on his face. He'd never said, "I told you so," about the muscle memory thing, but we both knew he'd been right. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. After class, as the girls filtered out, chattering and laughing, one lingered behind, new face, nervous energy. "I'm Madison," she said quietly. I have a video on my phone of someone at my school doing something bad. I don't know what to do." My heart clenched. Here we go again, but this time I knew exactly what to say. First, you're brave for even thinking about doing something. Second, you don't have to handle this alone. I sat on the bench, patting the spot beside me. "Tell me what's going on. We'll figure it out together." As Madison told her story, another bully, another victim, another school administrator looking the other way, I realized this was why I'd stayed visible. Not for awards or recognition, but for moments like this, when someone else's shy girl needed to know she wasn't alone. "Here's what we're going to do," I said when she finished. "We're going to report it properly, with support. Agent Johnson, Officer Johnson, she'll listen, and if you want, I'll go with you." "You'd do that?" "Someone stood up for me once, even when they were scared," I said. Thinking of Ashley Davis making that phone call. Now it's my turn to pay it forward. Madison nodded, tears in her eyes but determination on her face. Another shy girl finding her strength. Another bully about to learn that silence didn't mean weakness. As we walked out together into the Dallas evening, the gym's neon sign flickering to life above us, I thought about how different my life had become. No longer invisible, no longer afraid, no longer alone. The punch that had changed everything wasn't just about self-defense. It was about defending others, too. If you've ever felt powerless, ever thought your voice didn't matter, remember, this courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. And sometimes, all it takes is one person standing up to change everything, not just for themselves, but for everyone watching. My phone lit up with a text from Ashley Davis. Saw your class mentioned in the school newsletter. Tyler wants to write an article about it for the paper. Okay. I typed back, tell him yes, and tell him he's brave for sharing his story. Because, in the end, that's what all of this had been about. Not the viral video or the arrests or the awards. It was about breaking the silence that lets bullies thrive. It was about showing other quiet kids that they had power too. It was about learning that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let yourself be seen. The Thompson Boxing Gym sign glowed against the darkening sky as Madison and I headed to our cars. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges, new bullies, new scared kids needing someone to show them they weren't alone. But tonight, I was just Kayla Thompson, former invisible girl, accidental viral sensation, defender of the quiet ones. And for the first time in my life, that felt like exactly who I was supposed to be. The parking lot was almost empty when Madison's mom pulled up. Before getting in the car, Madison turned back to me. Kayla, that day, when you punched Derek, were you scared? I could have lied, could have played the hero she probably wanted me to be, but she deserved the truth. Terrified, I admitted. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely make a fist. But you know what scared me more? Doing nothing, letting him win, disappearing completely. She nodded slowly, understanding blooming in her eyes. Fear's just information. She repeated what I'd taught in class. Exactly. See you next Saturday. Wouldn't miss it. As her car pulled away, I sat in my old Honda for a moment, not quite ready to leave. The gym's back door opened, and my grandfather emerged, locking up for the night. He spotted me and walked over, moving with the careful dignity of a man who'd taken his share of hits, but never stayed down. Proud of you, kid, he said simply, leaning against my car. For teaching the class, for becoming who you are. He gazed at the gym, his life's work. You know, when your dad died, I worried I'd lost my chance to pass on what I knew. Boxing isn't just about fighting. It's about discipline, courage, protecting what matters. I thought that legacy would die with me. My throat tightened. Grandpa, but watching you these past months, seeing how you've taken what happened and turned it into something that helps others. He cleared his throat, emotion making his voice rough. Your dad would be so proud, not because you threw a good punch, but because you found your purpose. We stood there in comfortable silence, 3 generations of fighters connected by more than blood, by the understanding that real strength came from lifting others up. I've been thinking, I said eventually, about that Netflix lady's offer. His eyebrows rose. Yeah? Not for me. But what if we did something ourselves? A YouTube channel? Maybe. Teaching self-defense, but also talking about bullying. about finding your voice. No corporate production, no drama, just real stories, real help. A slow smile spread across his weathered face. Thompson Boxing goes digital. Something like that. I laughed. Madison's story made me realize there are probably thousands of kids out there who need to hear that they're not alone, that they have power. Maybe it's time to reach beyond just Dallas. Your dad always said you'd change the world someday. He squeezed my shoulder. Guess he was right about that too. But maybe she'd always been there, waiting.
Maybe we all have that stronger version inside us, just needing the right moment, or the right punch, to set it free. For once. I didn't cringe at the attention, because if my story could help even one more quiet kid find their voice, then every moment of fear had been worth it. The light turned green. I drove forward, toward home, toward tomorrow, toward whatever came next, ready for anything. When I got home, Mom was waiting in the kitchen, still in her scrubs but with a cup of tea instead of her usual exhausted collapse on the couch. The local news played quietly on her phone. They were doing a follow-up story on Derek's sentencing. "Turn it off, Mom, it's over." She did. Then pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home. "I never thanked you properly." She whispered into my hair. "For what? For surviving. For becoming this incredible young woman despite me being absent so much. For showing me that strength isn't about working yourself to death, trying to protect your kid from the world." She pulled back, eyes shining. "Your dad used to say the best protection we could give you was teaching you to protect yourself. I forgot that somewhere along the way. Mom." I switched to day shifts. She continued. "Took a small pay cut. But I figure being present is worth more than overtime pay. Maybe I can even help with those self-defense classes. I've got some stories from the ER that might wake people up about why this matters." I smiled, feeling another piece click into place. I'd like that. As we sat together, sharing tea and planning future classes, I realized something. Derek Anderson had tried to destroy me with exposure, with forced visibility. Instead, he'd given me the greatest gift possible, the knowledge that I was worth being seen, and that was the real knockout punch that would echo through every life I touched, every girl I taught, every bully who learned that silence didn't mean surrender. It meant strength was gathering, waiting for its moment to shine.